5 sources of inspiration. Here's the first one. Deciding. If you just make a decision, it can be sometimes the day that starts you on a brand new journey. Now, some decisions are incidental and some are small and some, are part of a working day. But sometimes decision making can be one of the most important days of your life. Maybe a decision you've postponed, and now you understand the penalty of postponing that decision. You've got to do something, and finally you come to the conclusion, today is the day. I now decide. And whether you decide on a new direction, whether you decide on a refinement in philosophy, whether you decide to act when before you haven't acted, you decide on a series of things that you're going to do, you decide. Deciding can be such an incredibly important, very exciting, inspirational day. Also, deciding sometimes starts the process of lifting our self-esteem. Sometimes when you look back on it, the day that you decided was just about as exciting as the day when you finally accomplished the project. That when you finally made the decision, you finally got the monkey off your back, as we say in English. You finally, got through whatever barriers kept you from making that decision, and finally you made a decision. And now it seems like the sky is blue and the air is clear and your mind is ready and, the adrenaline starts to flow, things start to happen to you from that moment of decision. So that can be an incredible source of inspiration. Now, if you don't follow through, it's not going to last all that long. If you decide and then, postpone and you decide but you still don't get to it for a week or a month or a year, soon all that energy and that source of inspiration is all dissipated. So deciding is inspiring, but not for that long. But once you decide, it can be a very powerful day. But now, of course, you must follow through. But if there's some things you've been postponing, some decisions you have just, hadn't gotten to, I would ask you to just, take out your journal and just go through, what have I been postponing that's not going to be better for my health? It's not going to be better for my future. It's not going to enhance my finances. Maybe a problem needs to be solved. I got to decide when I'm going to do it and how I'm going to proceed. I need to get to it. I promise you, if you'll go through some of that list and start making those decisions, your inspiration will start to flow, and those could be very critically important, exciting days. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. Indecision means the door is still closed. Indecision means the opportunity waits. Indecision means what could be is postponed or may never be. Those are all the penalties of indecision. And sometimes we can't make a snap judgment. We can't decide immediately on something so important. But after a while, we must understand sometimes the heavy penalty of putting off our decision making. So, one source of inspiration, deciding. Here's the next one. Planning. Now that you've decided and you start making plans, it's incredible what can happen as a source of inspiration. When finally what's in your head, what's in your imagination, now finally starts to take shape on paper. When I first heard about network marketing, I was 25 years old. And I heard some of the testimonials, and I heard that people have gotten rich, and I've heard that it's changed people's lives. And I've heard that you could start with nothing and become something. But let me tell you what was exciting. When I finally made the decision, yes, I was going to be part of the industry, yes, I was going to make it part of my marketing future, what was really exciting was when I sat down and started making plans. I started committing imagination and belief to paper. I started writing it down. I started as we often do, drawing those circles. What if I had 5? What if I had 10? And then when I had a concept of what that could bring for me, then I said, how can I reach the first 5? How can I reach the first 10? What could I do? Starting to make those plans, I'm telling you, I remember those days as if they were yesterday. They were so exciting. I had a concept of what I wanted. I had a dream of what could happen for me. If it could happen for others, maybe it could happen for me. But when I started putting it on paper and started making the plans, that was an incredible source of inspiration for me. Because the plans seemed to now start making it real. That what I had thought about, what I dreamed about, now I'm actually getting to it by making a plan. However, you can make all the plans in the world, and it is a source of inspiration for only so long. And you can make one plan, and then you can make another plan. And you can make some plans today, and the next day you can make some more plans, and the next day you can make some more plans. And it is a very exciting source of inspiration, but only for a while. I'm sure we would all agree that making plans, that inspiration wouldn't last for a week. Now, that inspiration now must drive you to do number 3. The first source of inspiration is deciding. Second source of inspiration is planning. And now, here's a big source of inspiration: beginning. Getting started. Actually turning thought and the notes on the paper, the plans, actually now committing it to action. Getting started. And beginning can be an incredible source of inspiration. Guess what you can say when you begin a change in your diet? When you begin to take the Herbalife products, guess what you can say? I'm on a new track. I have carved out for myself a new beginning. I'm on my way to the most incredible health. I will never be the same again. I'm leaving the old, undisciplined part of me. I'm leaving that behind. I'm a new person. I'm taking my first shake. I'm swallowing the first tablets. I made my first, walk around the block that I'd thought about for so long and never did. I finally did it today. I've started. I have begun. That is an incredible source of inspiration. And that is to start, to begin. You cannot believe what can happen to your self-esteem. And many of you have already experienced it. I'm just asking you to begin something new in all the areas of your life. Maybe you've always thought about benevolence and you just haven't gotten started, or you haven't made the plans, or you haven't made the decision. I'm asking you to start taking that stuff now that's in your head, that imagination, which is very powerful. And it's a great source of inspiration in itself. But then I'm asking you then to decide, use that inspiration. Then I'm asking you to make plans, begin to make plans, use that inspiration. And then if you take that first step, it can be the first step of an incredible journey. And when Mark had his first meeting, when Mark recruited his first distributor, when Mark got his first customer, his grandmother using the product, when Mark got that first few yeses from people, and he started the process, as simple as it was, from the trunk of his car, as crude as the literature was in the beginning, it was a start. And so beginning can be an incredible source of inspiration. And beginning can be many things. Beginning a new commitment to learning. You say, I'm going to have a library second to none, and I bought the first book of my new library today. I'm going to be surrounded by information and inspiration. The cassette tapes and the videos and the books. I'm going to have a library second to none. I've thought about it. Wouldn't it be wonderful? And, I've started making plans. I've provided some space in my room for my expanded library. But here's what's exciting. I got the first book today. I've gotten started. This is just the first of many many books. This is the first of a whole flow of information for me. This is the first time. You want to learn a new skill and you sign up for a class. Let's say you want to learn accounting or something, and you sign up for the class and you take the first class. You get started. You thought about it. You made some plans for it. You made some time for it. But there's nothing like sitting there in the class with the pen in your hand and the pad ready to take notes. Here I am. I'm starting on a new journey of learning. Remember that. Beginning is a fantastic source of inspiration. Planning is an incredible source of inspiration. Deciding is an unbelievable source of inspiration. But now beginning only lasts so long. If you begin that first week and then you don't continue, yes, you'll be inspired by deciding and planning and beginning. But all of that now will start to fade away if you don't do number 4. One of the great sources of inspiration is progressing. Once you've gotten started, now you proceed, you progress. Now you go to class the second week, you go to class the third week. But it's not only progressing in terms of time, it's progressing in terms of what you're learning, progressing in terms of getting the information that you hadn't discovered before. Now you're excited about that. Progress. One of the greatest sources of inspiration is progress. When you start jogging around the block, and at first it's a little difficult, and then it's 2 blocks, and then you go around 4 or 5 times. But then you notice you're breathing easier. You notice when you go up a flight of stairs, you're not out of breath. And it suddenly occurs to you, in a fairly short period of time, you're making progress. You can tell within a short period of time, I'm making progress on my oxygen supply. I'm making progress on losing weight. Then when you start making progress in your business, your ability to make contacts, your ability to talk to people. Being so shy, you decided one day, hey, I've had enough with being too shy. I've made the decision. I'm making some plans. I'm going to begin talking to people. And you start, and at first it's difficult. But then very quickly, and it doesn't take a year, I'm telling you, it doesn't take a month, it doesn't take a week. I promise you, even though you're a little bit shy, if you'll just start to introduce yourself, if you'll just start to talk to someone you've never talked to before, just get started. I promise you, in a fairly short period of time, because 2 things are happening. One is deciding to overcome a liability, but also understanding that with this new skill now, with this new ability, and with my progress, no telling what I can accomplish. Because if I can get over the fear of talking to 1, I can get over the fear of talking to number 10, number 50, number 100. And by the time I get to number 50 and number 100, my self-confidence is going to be so strong, my self-esteem is going to be so high, my new skill is going to show such incredible progress that I will never look back on the old ways. So, what an incredible source of inspiration, progressing. I jotted this down. Unhappiness is simply the lack of progress toward a preset goal. If you're not making progress, see, that's when unhappiness sets in. But here's where happiness begins. Making progressive progress. You don't have to arrive all at once. You don't have to have it immediately. But as long as you're making progress, as long as progress is part of your experience now, it is a fantastic source of inspiration. Now here's the next one. Source of inspiration, and that is achieving. When you finally have arrived at that goal that you set, I want to have this much experience and be able to do this by 30 days from now, 60 days from now, 6 months from now. And finally, that 6 months passes, and there you are. Finally, the time passes, and you have it. Finally, the time passes, and the skill is now beginning to be polished, and it is so unique and effective. Achieving is an incredible source of inspiration. But here's what we notice. When you do achieve, whatever you set out in the beginning, where you decided and planned and you got started and you progressed, when you finally achieve, that achievement is not much more inspiration than when you decided. It's a different kind of inspiration. It's a different kind of feeling to having arrived. Knowing that you've got many other objectives to accomplish, many other places you want to go, things you want to do, the person you want to become. But at least I've got this one. You know, I've done this one. I remember way back when I wanted to do the training and I wanted to do teaching, I would like to do seminars, because I saw people that had such a magnificent effect on their audience. They used the language to such an unbelievable degree. I could tell that something was mixed from their heart and their soul and their mind and their vocabulary, and this mixture of stuff together presented to someone's ears to hear and a heart maybe to believe and a mind to understand that the most incredible magic could occur. I thought to myself, if I could possibly do that, it would be the greatest feeling in the world. Later, I've come to have one more goal, which I just probably won't ever attain, and that is to be a singer. To not only speak the poetry, to not only speak the language, but to sing it, accompanied by music. In my opinion, that's probably the most awesome impact you can have on any person or any group or any audience, is the ability to communicate a message or a poem or lyrics or what you feel or what you know, to communicate it by music and by song. To me, it is the most incredible impact that one human can have on another or have on an audience. But next to that is to be able to feel strong about some ideas and have the ability to put it into words, to put it into language, drive it by emotion, have it mixed with experience, you know, and all the stuff that goes on in your head and your heart and your soul, and deliver it to the best of your ability, even as I'm doing today, to an unseen audience. But since I can visualize the audience and where it goes from here and where it may go beyond where it reaches even at the moment, that inspires me to do my best to come up with ideas that will be meaningful and helpful. To me, this is the most incredible experience. You know, the song, I will never get there because, you know, I don't have that particular powerful talent. But next to it, I'm telling you, you can have next to that the most incredible effect on someone else. Without a doubt, you can stir someone's imagination. You can reach that achievement. You can be there. What you've wished for and what you've dreamed for, if you will draw from the source of deciding, that inspiration, and the inspiration of planning, the inspiration of beginning, and the inspiration of progressing, then you will know this incredible inspiration of achieving, of finally getting there, finally being the person, finally accomplishing the goal.
Look at the wall, you run into it. You cannot even look at the wall, you pull the steering wheel into the wall. So when there's a crash at 215 miles an hour and there's smoke everywhere, we are trained to drive right into the smoke. Can you imagine that? Imagine the fear level of driving into the smoke at 200 miles an hour when you know there are crashed cars in front of you. That's what you do as a driver to win. That's what you do as an entrepreneur to win. That's what they do as an entrepreneur. My fever's like 110. All right, so you gotta be willing to drive in there. Here we go. You got 8 years left. Want to learn to bend time? You want some help with time? How do we manipulate those 8 years? Do you want to know, yes or no? Okay, here's how you manipulate that time. Who says a day is 24 hours? Who says that? Someone just made that crap up. Why can't a day be 23 hours? Why can't a day be 8 hours? A day can be 8 hours, by the way. I started it 10 years ago. I run 8-hour days. People that are successful in a bigger hurry, they're faster. They walk faster, talk faster, they move faster. This is something you're going to need to adopt. You don't need to be loud and intense like me, but you gotta move, think, and walk and talk faster. Speed matters. So I run 8-hour days. My first day, you can do it however the heck you want, but my first day, I run 3 mini days. They're actually each 6 hours. My first day is from 6 a.m. to noon. That's a day. Have you ever had a day where you got more accomplished the first 3 hours than you do in a normal whole day? Yes or no? So did I. And I started thinking, well, then what the hell do I measure this stuff by 24 hours for? So many years ago, I went, my day is 6 a.m. to noon. I let the rest of the world have their day. I'm trying to run a whole day schedule of calls, appointments, contacts, meetings, executions, return of emails, whatever it is, from 6 a.m. to noon. That is the end of my day. Day 2 starts from noon to 6 p.m. That's my second day. I got 2 days now. My third day is from 6 p.m. until midnight. I run this cycle of days. I get 3 days a day. I calibrate time that way. I look at time that way. I execute that way. I crush you. If you work 24-hour days, you're going to get slammed. In today's world, the speed of internet contacts, and you're going to compete against someone like me and the people I teach this to, which comes out on my YouTube video on Monday, so you're getting it first, you better start running mini days. Especially those of you, by the way, who do this part-time. You need to really start to calibrate time the way I just told you. A day for you going forward is 6 a.m. to noon. Your second day is noon to 6 p.m. So if some of you are going to be at your job for the first 2 days, you've got a brand new day when you leave there, and you're 6 p.m. to noon. If you're going to be a real entrepreneur, real part-time, you bend time. What that does for me is it allows me to measure myself every window, every day. At the end of that day, I measure and adjust and calibrate. I actually have a clock that goes off in my head every hour. To this day, top of every hour, what do I do to execute? What do I need to do to move closer to my goal? What do I need to do today? A little psycho, but it's what I have. You really want to win, you really want to be very wealthy, you compete with 24-hour days. Here's what I get. By the time you've run 2 days, I've had 6. Stack up a normal week for you, and I get 21 days. Now stack up a month, stack up a year, stack up 3 years, stack up 5 years, stack up 10 years, and you go from Velcro to Sadie.
So we can't even deal with what's fair. But he's stuck in the fact that it's not fair. I don't deserve that. They were wrong. I used to be a state legislator in Columbus, Ohio. During the break, we used to go out on the front lawn of the Ohio legislature, the Capitol there, and observe people as they came by. There was one particular person that all of us knew. The children, adults, everybody used to pick at him when he came by. We called him Chicken Man. He had a feather in his hat. He had a toy chicken on top of his car that he would drive around the area in downtown, blinking his lights and occasionally blowing his horn. When he got out of his car, he would walk downtown with a baby carriage with 2 little baby dolls in there and a picture of a woman. And when you say something to him or came near him, you would hear him making the sounds of a chicken. All of us used to laugh at Chicken Man. We didn't know Chicken Man's story. Chicken Man woke up one morning around 3 a.m. and his house was on fire. He panicked and he got out of the window and left quickly, only to get outside to hear his children and his wife screaming for help. He ran back to the door to go in to save them, and the flames were too hot, too awesome. He tried to get in, he couldn't get in. He was desperate, frantic. Pretty soon the cries stopped. They perished in the fire. His brother-in-law came, found out that his sister had died and his nieces in the fire, grabbed Chicken Man and started beating him. "You chicken, why did you save my sister? You're chicken, you're chicken." When the people pulled him off Chicken Man, they picked him up and said, "Are you all right?" And Chicken Man looked at him and he started making the sounds of a chicken. He never ever overcame that tragedy. He was stuck. From that experience, none of us knew why Chicken Man went around with this picture and these little dolls.
A good question to ask before undertaking any project or setting any new objective, then, is what are the most important half-dozen things that will make the major difference in how it works out? So whether the enterprise is art or architecture, music or sculpture, mathematics or sports, business or farming, success or lifestyle, it's the fundamentals that count. To understand them and to practice them is to take the first intelligent step toward accomplishing your objectives and living your dreams. The second key word for us to consider is wealth. Wealth is a word that brings about a wide variety of mental images, and that is part of my purpose in these cassettes, to provoke that wide variety of mental images, for that is where the dreams are, that is where the inspiration comes from, and that is where true incentive is born. The mystery and mixture of mental image, the stuff and the staff of life. Its right use, its constant use is the way to a life unique and a life abundant. Now, to one, wealth means having enough financial substance to be able to do whatever you wish to do with your life. To another, it may mean freedom from debt, freedom from the constant claim of obligation. To yet another, it means opportunity. And to many, wealth means $1 million. That's a unique word, millionaire. It rings of success, freedom, power, influence, pleasure, possibility, benevolence, and excitement. Not a bad mental image.
Most of you have these stats, but I pulled them because I think they're interesting. Because I'm talking about Old Testament stuff, and you might say, well, that's outdated, and we don't need to hear that. These latest stats say 1,500 pastors leave the ministry permanently each month in America. 1,500 running out the door every month. In America alone, that's a lot. Imagine 1,500 people leaving your church a month. 1,500 people, pastors a month, say, a month. 4,000 new churches start each year in America. 7,000 churches close each year. If you got 7,000 closing and 4,000 start, that's that number. You've been hearing a lot about pastors and divorces, big pastors and big preachers. There's a lot being said about people getting divorced. Oh, bless God. Oh, see, because when you're big and you have a problem, it gets a lot of publicity and people get tie in and talk about it like you're an anomaly, like you're an exception. Let me give you some reality check. 50% of pastors' marriages, of pastors' marriages end in divorce. So it's not just the big ones you hear about. It's the little ones too. It's just that when you're big and you get a problem that little people have, they get to kill you for having it. 50%? Gosh, that seems like a lot. That seems like a whole lot of people. 80% of pastors spend under 15 minutes a day in prayer. Maybe that's some of the problem we have. And nearly 60% of pastors secretly want to get out of ministry, but have no way to sustain themselves aside from what they're doing it for the binges. The passion is gone. The thrill is gone. They're in the middle of their lives. They can't start over in a new position. They've got too much titles and too much influence, and they're embarrassed quit, and they're hanging on by a thread. Those are huge statistics. And if those statistics are accurate, then you could assume that there is at least 10% of the people in this room are sick of just sick. Oh, praise the Lord. How you doing, friend? I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
The meaning we associate to things controls our entire life. It's not that your mother or father died that's giving you suffering. Certainly that's painful. It's the meaning you think it shouldn't have happened. When we take control of the meaning, it's the only thing we can control in our lives. We can't control events. And we're living now where technology is happening so rapidly. It's magnificent what it does for our lives. But we all know with that technology, our psychology is not developing as rapidly. And as a result, the world's changing. And there are a lot of us that have learned to engage with technology and use it to maximize. Most people in this room. There's lots of people who use technology to disengage, to be harmful to themselves and to other people. It's not a one-way street. So I'm interested in how to maximize the psychology side. That's why I'm sharing this with you. So you can increase both your leadership skill, but who do you have to lead first to be effective, my friends? Who? Yourself. And so good to see what's controlling you. Well, what I'm focusing on is controlling me. You can focus on something, you make yourself crazy. You can focus on something and make yourself great. In this moment, you can be worried about Ebola, because we all know it's coming. People are freaked out all over the world. 36,000 people die a year of flu, and the whole world is focused on Ebola. Because the news is not designed to inform you, it is designed to startle you. That's how you sell things. So if you let someone else take control of your focus, your life will be in someone else's hands. So first decision is what you're going to focus. Second, meaning. My father that day focused that he had to take care of his family, and the meaning was, I know what it was because he said it out loud, that I'm worthless. And when you come up with a meaning, it produces an emotion. And if you and I want to look at the quality of our life, there's only a way to find it. One way, really, that's real. How do you feel every day? If every day of your life you got $1 billion and every day you feel guilty or angry, by the way, nothing worse than an angry rich man or woman, isn't there? You just want to slap them, don't you? How do you have the right to be angry? They find a way. But if you got $1 billion and you're angry and you're pissed off and you're guilty all the time, what is the quality of your life? Angry, pissed off, and guilty.
So I had the chance to meet with some of the kids in the program today. Where are you? Scream out. There you go. I love those kids. And So what I thought I would do, because they gave me a little bit of time to say whatever I want, is offer you a little bit of some observations for your future. I have 5 little rules that you can follow as you find your spark and bring your spark to life. The first is to go after the things that you want. Let me tell you a story. So a friend of mine and I, we went for a run in Central Park. The Roadrunners organization, on the weekends, they host races. And it's very common at the end of the race, they'll have a sponsor who will give away something, apples or bagels or something. And on this particular day, when we got to the end of the run, there were some free bagels. And they had picnic tables set up, and on one side was a group of volunteers. On the table were boxes of bagels, and on the other side was a long line of runners waiting to get their free bagel. So I said to my friend, let's get a bagel. And he looked at me and said, the line's too long. And I said, free bagel. And he said, I don't want to wait in line. And I was like, free bagel. And he says, it's too long. And that's when I realized that there's 2 ways to see the world. Some people see the thing that they want, and some people see the thing that prevents them from getting the thing that they want. I could only see the bagels. He could only see the line. And so I walked up to the line. I leaned in between 2 people, put my hand in the box, and pulled out 2 bagels. And no one got mad at me. Because the rule is, you can go after whatever you want. You just cannot deny anyone else to go after whatever they want. Now, I had to sacrifice choice. I didn't get to choose which bagel I got. I got whatever I pulled out. But I didn't have to wait in line. So the point is you don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do it the way everybody else has done it. You can do it your way. You can break the rules. You just can't get in the way of somebody else getting what they want. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2. I like this one. In the 18th century, there was something that spread across Europe and eventually made its way to America called puerperal fever, also known as the Black Death of childbed. Basically what was happening is women were giving birth and they would die within 48 hours after giving birth. This Black Death of childbirth was the ravage of Europe, and it got worse and worse and worse over the course of over a century. In some hospitals, it was as high as 70% of women who gave birth who would die as a result of giving birth. But this was the Renaissance. This was the time of empirical data and science, and we had thrown away things like tradition and mysticism. These were men of science. These were doctors. And these doctors and men of science wanted to study and try and find the reason for this Black Death of childbed, and so they got to work studying, and they would study the corpses of the women who had died. And in the morning they would conduct autopsies, and then in the afternoon they would go and deliver babies and finish their rounds. And it wasn't until somewhere in the mid-1800s that Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, father of Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, realized that all of these doctors who were conducting autopsies in the morning weren't washing their hands before they delivered babies in the afternoon. And he pointed it out and said, guys, you're the problem. And they ignored him and called him crazy for 30 years. Until finally somebody realized that if they simply washed their hands, it would go away. And that's exactly what happened. When they started sterilizing their instruments and washing their hands, the Black Death of childbed disappeared. My point is, the lesson here is, sometimes you're the problem. We've seen this happen all too recently with our new men of science and empirical studiers and these men of finance who were smarter than the rest of us until the thing collapsed. And they blamed everything else except themselves. And my point is take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability. That's lesson 2. Lesson 3. Take care of each other. The United States Navy SEALs are perhaps the most elite warriors in the world. And one of the SEALs was asked, who makes it through the selection process? Who is able to become a SEAL? And his answer was, I can't tell you the kind of person that becomes a SEAL. I can't tell you the kind of person that makes it through BUD/S. But I can tell you the kind of people who don't become SEALs. He says the guys that show up with huge, bulging muscles, covered in tattoos, who want to prove to the world how tough they are, none of them make it through. He said the preening leaders who like to delegate all their responsibility and never do anything themselves, none of them make it through. He said the star college athletes who've never really been tested to the core of their being, none of them make it through. He said some of the guys that make it through are skinny and scrawny. He said some of the guys that make it through, you will see them shivering out of fear. He says, however, all the guys that make it through, when they find themselves physically spent, emotionally spent, when they have nothing left to give physically or emotionally, somehow, some way, they are able to find the energy to dig down deep inside themselves, to find the energy to help the guy next to them. They become SEALs, he said. You want to be an elite warrior. It's not about how tough you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how fast you are. If you want to be an elite warrior, you better get really, really good at helping the person to the left of you and helping the person to the right of you. Because that's how people advance in the world. The world is too dangerous and the world is too difficult for you to think that you can do these things alone. If you find your spark, I commend you. Now, who are you going to ask for help, and when are you going to accept help when it's offered? Learn that skill. Learn by practicing helping each other. It'll be the single most valuable thing you ever learn in your entire life. To accept help when it's offered and to ask for it when you know that you can't do it. The amazing thing is when you learn to ask for help, you'll discover that there are people all around you who've always wanted to help you. They just didn't think you needed it because you kept pretending that you had everything under control. And the minute you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I don't think I can do this, you will find that lots of people who love you will rush in and take care of you. But that'll only happen if you learn to take care of them first. Lesson 4. Nelson Mandela is a particularly special case study in the leadership world because he is universally regarded as a great leader. You can take other personalities, and depending on the nation you go to, we have different opinions about other personalities. But Nelson Mandela, across the world, is universally regarded as a great leader. He was actually the son of a tribal chief. And he was asked one day, how did you learn to be a great leader? And he responded that he would go with his father to tribal meetings. And he remembers two things when his father would meet with other elders. One, they would always sit in a circle. And two, his father was always the last to speak. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does two things. One, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And two, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. The skill is really to keep your opinions to yourself. If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. And at the end, you will get your turn. It sounds easy. It's not. Practice being the last to speak. That's what Nelson Mandela did. Number 5. Monty Python. 1, 2, 5, 3. For all the other nerds in the audience. There's one. Number 5. My favorite one of all. True story. There was a former Undersecretary of Defense who was invited to give a speech at a large conference, about 1,000 people. And he was standing on the stage with his cup of coffee in a styrofoam cup, giving his prepared remarks with his PowerPoint behind him. And he took a sip of his coffee and he smiled and he looked down at the coffee. And then he went off script. And he said, last year I spoke at this exact same conference. Last year I was still the Undersecretary. And when I spoke here last year, they flew me here business class. And when I arrived at the airport, there was somebody waiting for me to take me to my hotel. And they took me to my hotel and they had already checked me in and they just took me up to my room. And the next morning I came downstairs and there was someone waiting in the lobby to greet me and they drove me to this here same venue. They took me through the back entrance and took me into the green room and handed me a cup of coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup. He says, I'm no longer the Undersecretary. I flew here coach. I took a taxi to my hotel and I checked myself in. When I came down the lobby this morning, I took another taxi to this venue. I came in the front door and found my way backstage, and when I asked someone, do you have any coffee? He pointed to the coffee machine in the corner, and I poured myself a cup of coffee into this here styrofoam cup. He says the lesson is, the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember this. As you gain fame, as you gain fortune, as you gain position and seniority, people will treat you better. They will hold doors open for you. They will get you a cup of tea and coffee without you even asking. They will call you sir and ma'am, and they will give you stuff. None of that stuff is meant for you. That stuff is meant for the position you hold. It is meant for the level that you have achieved of leader or success or whatever you want to call it. But you will always deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember that. Remember that lesson of humility and gratitude. You can accept all the free stuff. You can accept all the perks. Absolutely, you can enjoy them. But just be grateful for them and know that they're not for you. I remember getting off the Acela. I took the Acela from New York to Washington, D.C. And I got off the train like everybody else. And I was walking down the platform like everyone else. And I walked past General Norty Schwartz, who used to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, the head of the Air Force. And here I did, see a guy in a suit, schlepping his own suitcase down the platform just like me. And just a couple months ago, he was flying on private jets and he had an entourage and other people carried his luggage. But he no longer held the position. And so now he got to drag his own suitcase. And never did it sort of remind me more that none of us deserve the perks that we get. We all deserve a styrofoam cup. It was a pleasure meeting you guys this afternoon. I was blown away by your honesty and your curiosity and your poise. And I am confident that the future is bright, despite the fact that America looks like an absolute mess right now. I am confident that the future is bright for one reason and one reason only, because you will grow up and you will be our future. Thank you very, very much, guys. You're wonderful.